Hey everybody, this is Perch. Here's a question asking which company is healthiest in American comics. So the exact mail goes, hey Perch, which company is healthiest in American comics? Just looking at Image, they seem to have a really healthy line of ongoing comics. Meanwhile, Marvel obviously sells the best. Then there's IDW, who seems to have a stronghold over the IP licensing market. I don't know about that one. Anyway, thanks for all the videos. So which company is the healthiest? Well, it does depend on what criteria you're using for healthy. So if you're purely talking about cash flow and who's got the most to spend and who's got the most whose powder is dry, for lack of a better word, that would be Marvel, hands down. I mean, because they've got Disney money they're playing with, and Disney has signaled and been pretty clear about the fact that they are willing to take a loss on parts of their business unit if they believe it fulfills other objectives. And right now, the comics business at Marvel is seen as complementary to the IP business overall of those characters and properties for Feige and the movies and everything else. So at the exact moment, if you're talking purely financial health, it's Marvel, pretty unquestionably. DC is second. However, the uncertainty of that company and their financials and what's going to happen with Discovery and everything else would make them second. But it's worth noting that the fact that their business is reliant upon having a big brother, if you will, with the bank, it also puts them at heavy risk. So if you're doing a financial analysis, you would say, Marvel has the most, financial strength in the market. However, that financial strength comes from non-revenue means, which is a pretty important factor if you're talking business. It basically, when you're gauging the strength of something, you look at certainly the strategic value of that company, and you look at whether it's profitable on its own merits or profitable because people are, inclined to invest in it at the moment. Marvel falls into the latter category. It makes money. Make no mistake about it. I think if you're looking purely at the balance sheet, Marvel makes the most money out of the U.S. comics, but Marvel also spends the most money. So it's not it's not like they're just throwing off cash. And the other thing that Marvel has failed to do, if you're doing a financial analysis of it, is they have failed to capitalize on their current market position by getting to new revenue streams. By that I mean the Marvel Unlimited deal, digital downloads, being able to do more than what they're currently doing. Marvel hasn't yet cracked the nut in how they make more for less with their current business. If they start to get into an all-you-can-eat kind of deal with the comics, or you get people subscribing to Marvel Unlimited on a steady uptick, then it works. And they are getting. So I recently just talked to somebody in that department. They are getting more strength in the Marvel Unlimited digital app. It is growing subscribers. It's just growing at a pace that is would be uninteresting for somebody doing a financial assessment. They're growing, but it's they are putting a decent amount into market lead gen to get that growth, and it's not taking off like a software as a service, a SaaS business subscription service would normally wants to see. So that's where they're at. I think the fact that they're bankrolled by their parent basically means as long as Disney's interested, they're going to be okay. But Disney could stop being interested. What the scenarios where that happens is Disney decides that the movies really don't need the comics. They're somewhat irrelevant. That is not how they feel today. And there's been a lot of speculation that I've heard on other channels that that's how they think, but they're very clearly wedded to the comics. They believe that the comics are good marketing. They believe that they help ultimately grow the overall account. They believe that having the comics out there means that they can ask for more money in licensing, which they do. And so there's a number of reasons why financially they believe the comics are a good investment. And even though they are profitable, they're not profitable by what Disney likes to typically see in a business. It's not throwing out 3x, 4x cash. So it's content to stay there, but in many ways it's stuck. So Disney's also going to put in the amount of money that's reasonable to run that business. They're not going to put in money to grow that business. They're not going to be heavily motivated to put really top talent people in there at a management level to push the business, because for them it's marketing. It's profitable, but it's perceived and I think viewed as a write-off within the company. So as long as conditions stay the same, another way to put it is, another thing that could happen is, suddenly the movies are not making as much money and people get tired of comic book stuff. There's just some new genre that takes off, and the movies start to stumble. In that world, what's interesting is in that world you would see Disney basically rapidly shift money into trying to figure out how to save the movie business, and they would just kill the comics almost immediately. They would shutter any cash that they don't view as directly responsible for driving, saving the movies if they start to sink. So I would struggle. It's I say they're the healthiest, and on paper they are, but that's it's a healthiest with a lot of caveats. So then so what's a true business? It's actually making money, spending within its means, doing fairly well. Well, I mean, Image is certainly making money, but it's also their business model with what they do kind of caps them at a lower grade. So again, if you're an investor, you would probably I don't know, you'd look at it in that way. I mean, the way I would assess a healthy company would be somebody like I mean, Valiant's not healthy. IDW's not healthy. Boom is healthy-ish. I mean, Boom really wants to get acquired. That's ultimate. That's what Boom's after. So they're making several moves. But in fairness, I guess I would probably settle on Boom as an example of a comic company that is mostly staying within the lines, making sure the business fundamentals are clean. Because Boom's motivation is ultimately to be acquired, they keep fairly clean books. Whoever's running the shop over there doesn't do weird stunts in order to survive month to month. They want the balance sheet to look clean, look good, look like a good purchase, and they seem to be pretty smart about that. IDW used to be smart about that, and then I just think they got it's like the iceberg. Eventually, the part underwater started to really weigh the part above water down, and now it's seen as just as a full acquisition opportunity. Right now, it's invested into. It becomes pretty difficult to make that case, and then them losing their licenses doesn't help. So I think that the healthiest from a business fundamental perspective. I mean, I think you're probably at Boom. Maybe you're at some of the other indies that they don't make a lot of money, but they're profitable and everybody is paid and they don't have debt. Unfortunately, that's a very short list. I'm struggling here. I'm trying to, I mean, probably the healthiest, and I hate that I'm going to go here. You knew I was going to go here. Probably Viz. Viz is probably clocking in at the healthiest right now based on what they've done. Now, I say that again with caveats because it remains to be seen what Viz's power is should manga start to decline in the U.S. Should interest wane, how have they, what kind of debt have they taken on? What kind of things have they done to, what do their licenses look like? I think the biggest thing, if I was trying to do a financial analysis of that company, is I'd look at contracts they have and see if there's any kind of, what the terms are. So one thing that got people the last time manga had a, boom and then a bust is that contracts were signed basically guaranteeing a license fee for a set period of time. So what that means is a company goes in and says, we'll give you $50,000 a year for 5 years for this license. The license holders love that. Now, those kinds of deals are very far and few between now. That used to be a lot bigger 20 years ago. There was kind of this term commitment. And they're just, unfortunately, they bankrupt too many companies. So what happens is, maybe things go well for year 1 and year 2, but then they start to slide in year 3, and then the license holder kind of abandons their property, gets bored of it, stops distributing, especially if it's an overseas entity, stops distributing things in the U.S., and so the overall market, kind of collapses. But the company that did the license is still on the hook to pay for year 4 and year 5, and that's absolutely bankrupt several companies. So I don't think I would be surprised if that's what Viz was doing, but I'd want to look at that aspect of what their licenses look like and how they're handled, and are they racking up long-term commitments for what could be a short-term business. You never bet on failure, by the way. You wouldn't go in and say, well, never do anything risky because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. I mean, obviously nobody knows what tomorrow will ever bring. But still, you need to be careful setting yourself up for long-term financial commitments when you may not be able to pay for it. So companies have taken to this is going to be silly for several of you who are watching this who are going to find this absurd, but several tech companies have started to, when you have those kinds of contracts, you go ahead and depreciate or you count the debt up front. So basically, your revenue and your balance sheet reports on how you're doing in eating down that debt. So if you have, say, a 5-year commitment, $50,000 a year, it's $250,000. You put that $250,000 in year 1, and basically then you work your way out of it. And the reason you do that is that you just don't have these surprises lingering in year 2 and year 3, 4, 5, etc. That suddenly you realize you have to pay something. So I just that's also a healthier way, and it was really a response of a lot of companies. I think around 2008, just imploding, which is exactly what went on. So anyway, that's kind of what we have there. Other than that, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you want to look for. If you're a comic company coming into things now, I think what you should be focused on is, can I maintain a stable business? Can I not spend ahead of my means? Can I have, more or less, 2 years at least of revenue worked out, so I know where my money is coming from, I know what my expenses are, and I don't start to, go underwater by surprise. How do I achieve that? That's the goal. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. I wish I could have given you a better, like a more firm, it's this company. But unfortunately, the way the business works right now, it's kind of everything's got stars and asterisks by it, and that's just kind of that's how things are right now. It's a weird time. Anyway, thank you very much for the question. And if you have a question of your own, you can write into the show. Otherwise, you might have a different answer of who the healthiest company is. Let me know in the comments. And thanks for listening.